Welcome to Guided, helping you navigate your divine journey. I'm Jodi Reynosa, your host, and with me today is Stephen Mcghee, and he is an author, he's an international speaker, and he is a documentarian as well. So I'm going to read you a little bit about his bio. And by the way, welcome to Guided, Stephen.
It's so good to be here, and less is more with my bio as far as I'm concerned, but thank you for introducing me, and I'm so happy to be here, Jodi.
Oh, wonderful. So, and you're joining us from California, so it's amazing. It's looks beautiful out there. Let me just tell you a little bit about Stephen, though, and I do want to go into his bio because he's amazing. So, Stephen Mcghee is the owner of Stephen Mcghee Leadership. He is an international keynote speaker, as I mentioned, author of 3 books on leadership, his latest being Get Real, a vital breakthrough on your life and leadership and a visionary guide to highly influential leaders across the globe. With a background in finance and a graduate degree in spiritual psychology, which we were talking about before the show, it's so intriguing to me. You will immediately experience the diversity in his presence. Additionally, Stephen is on the faculty at the University of Santa Monica, where he teaches soul-centered leadership as one of his favorite topics, which is one of my favorite topics as well. That's why he's on the show. He believes that theory will only take us so far in our human evolution. Therefore, Stephen leads programs of an experiential nature, which I love because, you know, the world is our university, so to speak, such as the Aconcagua Man Project, which we will get into. I'm so excited about that, which later became a highly acclaimed documentary film entitled Climb to Freedom. This film chronicles the transformation of 7 men on a year-long journey to climb a high mountain and bring the application of that experience back to their lives and relationships. Stephen believes that the easiest thing we can do is to be ourselves, and that true leadership invokes a spiritual presence that is greatly needed in the challenges of today's life and business environment. Isn't that the truth? He is one that does not believe in modern day gurus, but rather a man that shares his own life experience and learnings to assist others in up-leveling their own. I love that. Thank you.
You're welcome. It's interesting because I wrote, obviously, that before we were in this time on the planet, and I just think it's more important now than ever, this inner leadership piece, right? And
absolutely. I was thinking that before the show. I'm like, this is so needed right now. And speaking of leadership, let's just talk a little bit about that. When you think of the leaders today, and I don't want to get too political, but when you think of the leaders today, and not just in politics, but in different realms, what, from an observer standpoint, what do you see?
Firstly, I think I would be remiss if I didn't say that it's really hard to be a leader. It's really hard to be a leader, you know, in any way, shape, or form, especially when you're in the limelight all the time. Having said that, I am so disturbed by the demonstration of leadership at large. You know, leadership by definition is far-reaching, but one definition is to positively influence other people toward a positive vision, or through wisdom, action toward a positive vision. And we don't see that on a global scale. We don't see that on a world level. We see too much politic, too much being grounded in an opinion or an agenda. And so overarchingly, what I would say is that's just not leadership. Mm-hmm. A position does not mean leadership. So a person can have a title, but has nothing to do with being a leader. So whether it's a CEO or whatever the title is, it has absolutely nothing with being a leader.
Well, plus in a world when you can buy a title, when you can convince or negotiate people that are on your resume as far as them saying, oh yeah, that person's great. You know, so why do you think we permit that in this world?
So thank you. What a beautiful question. Already I'm loving this conversation because see, one of the reasons I mentioned the modern day guru or the guru is gone is you know, a lot of us are looking, and a lot of us in North America are looking for someone to solve our problems.
Yes.
We're going extrinsic with it. So we look out there and we think if we have the right leader in the world, or the right leader in politics, or the right leader in our company, that all of our problems are somehow going to be solved. But in truth, one of the things that's happening on the planet right now is all that's being flattened. And each of us are having to rise up as individual leaders in consciousness and collectively to the place where we own our situation. And when that happens, then we can collaborate. And when we collaborate, we actually have power through love, or power through intention, as opposed to force. And when that occurs, we can absolutely change the trajectory of a negative situation. But it only happens through that collective and that collaboration. We misunderstand leadership because one person just doesn't have the power. It's never been meant to be that way, and it never will work that way.
So true. So this takes me to the next question of, well, who do you think those leaders rely on? You know, because being that things are so intrinsic, and it seems that they don't allow themselves within to even be their own authority, where are they getting their advice? I mean, I know they run around with teams and their different camps and all of that, but where is that true, authentic inner wisdom, if they even go within? Where's that even coming from, you know?
Yeah, I mean, Jodi, what a great point. I mean, and I hope that we're at the tail end of command and control and autocratic leadership or patriarchal leadership, but we're not. I mean, we're still in it. So what happens is a person has a need to be right. So a person has a need to have the right answers, and surrounds him or herself with what I call the echo chamber.
Yeah.
And the echo chamber is, you and I are sitting in a meeting. If we were in an echo chamber and you would say something, I go, Jodi, I agree with you. Jodi, that's right. And I would be basically, you know, stroking your ego so that you can go out there with more confidence with an ego solution. Mm-hmm. That's what I see today. And so the need for true leadership would look like we would be in an actual conversation of diversity, where you and I would be in a conversation where I go, look, Jodi, I hear that. And have you considered this? And have you thought of this? And you wouldn't be positioned on your agenda. You would actually be open to a higher good solution. Now, I know this sounds like dreamland or something, but I believe in it. I believe
Absolutely.
that it's our only way to change the problems on the planet. And it's going to be through leadership, and it's going to be through collaboration and conversations of diversity. It's not going to come from ego, being right. Even when they're wrong, they want to be right. Like, defense is the first act of war, as I see it. And so you see a lot of people defending their point of view. And right away, I just go, what are you defending?
Right, right. I know. And the thing is, I don't even see that as dreamland. I feel like we can actually anchor those things down to have that true leadership. And so I just don't, I'm thinking, what is the issue here? And I feel like even if you go on social media, people have to, it's so polarized on either side. And I feel like people are not in a position to even just listen to one another. I feel like if you go back in history to elementary school, when teachers taught how to be polite when you may disagree with somebody, and even as you just modeled, you know, I hear what you're saying. That's a good point. But have you thought of this? We're not even doing that with each other as adults. I mean, we may have been taught that as children, but we're not taking that into our adult life, sadly. So it's like, how are we not communicating with each other in just a polite, civil manner? I just don't understand.
We're afraid.
Good point.
We're afraid. We feel like, lots of us feel like, I mean, I can't generalize. A lot of people feel like, I have at times in my life felt like, when I'm in fear, I defend myself and I want to be right. And then what gets projected is, making someone wrong, and then there's no conversation at all. There's nothing that changes. You know, one of my favorite quotes, I quote Rumi all the time,
I
but
love
out
Rumi.
there somewhere, there's a field of no right doing and wrongdoing, and I'll meet you there. That Rumi had that down. That to me is the quintessential leader, whether that person is young or old or male or female or black or white or Asian. That's the field we want to be in. We want to be in that field, and in that field, there's an understanding and a solution. There always will be.
I love that. That just gave me chills. Can you feel that, everyone? That's the field we want to meet on. Yes.
And we can still share our thoughts, and we can still share, you know, how we see things, but not from a place of defensiveness. And, you know, I'm not on my social media channels. And by the way, is this evergreen? Do you want this to be evergreen?
Go ahead and do whatever.
Okay.
We can make it evergreen, or we can make it, you know, moment by moment. Let's just do it.
All right, cool. So social media, in my feeds so far, there's a lot of civility.
Oh, yes.
A lot of civility. So people have differing opinions, but there's a demonstration of learning. So people will actually, most of the time, listen, and then they might say something back. But see, what happens from that is the conversation up levels. It goes up instead of spiraling down into a cesspool of hatred and anger, and I'm defriending you, and how did I friend you in the first place, and mean-spirited stuff that I won't even say here on your beautiful, clean, energetically clean show. Like, it just doesn't help anything. And
Right.
and the person that does that is hurting.
Exactly. Yeah. That's such a good point. There was a comment made actually on my own social media about a book that I was endorsing, and it really hurt me that this person was hurting like that, and they lashed out and projected. And I thought, okay, because you have a difference of opinion, you are lashing out and making everybody wrong because you want to defend your one position. And so it's so sad to me. And it's because my thought was, because their paradigm is shifting somehow, and they're in fear that it's underneath, it's moving for them, and it's breaking open, and they're seeing a different viewpoint than what they're used to. And so it's scaring them. And so they're lashing out with their one point that they've always believed. And it's like, you know, they don't know what to do with it. So I just thought, oh, that poor person. I mean, in a good way, you know, of course I blessed and prayed for them and sent them good vibes, but you know, it's exactly what you're talking about. It's the fear. I think that's such a beautiful point that you bring up. Let's take it to the micro level. So groupthink. So for instance, when a person is in that fear mode and they want to bring across a certain point, oftentimes I hear them say, oh, and so believes that too. Or, and so says this too, they think that too. So it's like they're bringing other people on the bandwagon with them to prove their point to you. Are you seeing that a lot too?
I'm seeing more and more of all of it's almost like all these things are being flushed out. And I hope that that's what it is it's a flushing, like a clearing. You know, nature abhors a vacuum, meaning that for true creation and miracles to happen on this planet, there needs to be an opening for it. And right now it's just full of a lot of uncertainty. It's full of a lot of fear. It's full of a lot of people being in doubt about themselves, their future, all these kinds of things. So I hope it's a flushing out, number one. Number two, yeah, it goes back to what I said earlier on a macro level, to your point. On a more micro level, the individual doesn't own it inside of them. So they're gathering extrinsic confidence or credibility from other people that might agree. And we see this with everything from, we see it everywhere, but we see it in when we start to have, what's the word I'm looking for, when, there's like all these people like are trying to make up something to believe it. And it's like conspiracy theorists are gathering together. And my experience with that kind of thing is just that I've been in too many boardrooms with too many smart people. Nobody on this planet, from my experience, is that organized. to link up with 7 or 8 different conspiracies and have it be one. It might look that way, but to me, I think we just have to be more mindful about what we're looking at and see through the lens of our own individual truth, instead of being influenced so much by what other people think. Because until we do that, we're never going to know for ourselves. We're never going to really know the truth for ourselves. Does that make sense, Jodi?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And in fact, that leads me to the point when people ask me, well, what do you think? Or I just got a question the other day from a friend, and she said, well, what do you see me doing? And I thought to myself, okay, take that back to you. You are the authority on you. And if people, I mean, they can go to psychics and readings and all of that, all they want. And they can get the extrinsic data that they need to help make them help them make decisions. That's fine. However, I always tell them, they are seeing a snapshot in time in your timeline. And the thing is that there are many facets of timelines for you, and you create your own reality. And so really, you are the authority on you. And so take it inside and decide for you, because it's really up to you. So it's not what I think, because you have many talents and you can make what you want of your life. So I think that people are afraid to be their own authority because they've always been told what to do for their entire lives. And so I think that power frightens them. Are you seeing that?
Well, I'll take it again to a micro level, then we can blow it up more macro. But on a micro level, having done a lot of work in companies like Microsoft, where we were doing culture, teamwork, team performance, team excellence, work, what I saw was a team of really brilliant people, like let's say 20. And maybe out of that 24 or 5 were really sharing their discretionary effort and their wisdom and creativity at a full level. The other 15 or 16 were waiting to be told what to do and were more concerned about looking right and making sure they kept their job by appeasing the people around them. So what I've seen when a team, let's say, and I have been with some teams that everyone's fully deployed, everybody's fully engaged. Those are powerful teams. Mm-hmm. But guess what? They argue more. There's more diversity. There's more meetings that are fiery and short, and less meetings that are an hour and a half long where nobody decides anything. And the point I want to make is that diversity is life. Yeah. That's value. Everybody wants it to be all peaceful all the time. That's just not the reality of creation. Look at nature. Nature's a great reflection of volatility, and not always peaceful. I live in, as you can see, a place where there's some nature, and I watch it. I watch it happen out here. It's not always nicey nice. So I'm not saying that, people who've misused like love, and leadership people like me are all about the love and the peace and all that. But what about the diversity? What about the carefrontation, where people are like fully owned by themselves, and then you have this engagement that everybody can rise up together and make Herculean changes and results. And in my humble opinion, that's what we need to do at a macro level on the planet. There's some things, we got to change some things now. We don't have time to wait on some things.
Ooh, you know what? I think you should just coin that for relationship talk too. Carefrontation. I love that. So, because I think even for myself, I kind of, what am I looking for? I kind of steer clear from conflict. I cringe, not in the workplace, but when it comes to like in relationship, whether it's friendships or anything like that, I don't like to rock the boat like that. However, like to your point, you can really get things done and you can be really productive fast. And there's that cycle, and I'm sure you teach it too, where it's like a group can come together and it's peaceful at first, but then there's that, what is it called? That like storm, that Norman storm, process too. And then it's like they work it out again. So there's that whole process of a group that, you know, they go through. But I like that because conflict doesn't have to be negative. It doesn't have to be bad. It can be very productive. So I like
And
that.
intimate. It can be
Yes.
intimate. You know,
Yes.
I'm not talking about mean-spirited, making someone wrong. I'm talking about a conversation where both people get to grow. And and if we allow it, we will walk away with greater trust because we already know when someone has something to say, yes or no. Like
Oh yeah.
we can feel it.
Yes.
And then it doesn't get said. And I've seen this in some really long-term relationships that are in my world where there's just, they get along, they cohabitate, but they don't really say what's on their heart and mind in a loving way. So the intimacy starts to dissipate, and then there's less of a relationship, but they're coexisting. So there's value in it in terms of depth and loving and relationship and growing, and like looking at that person then, whether it's a friend or a brother or your lover, and then look, or your spouse, and now you're looking and you're going, oh my God, I love you even more because look at who we became together in that moment. And
Sure.
that's leadership too.
Yeah. I
That
love that.
requires leadership. And it, you know, it gets messy sometimes. I've had some times in my life and occasionally still do where I'm like, oh God, that was messy. And I don't like it. I'm like you in that way. I don't look forward to it. It's not like I wake up and go, I want to have a messy conversation. I don't.
Right. Right. Oh my goodness. So now tell me, when you were kind of the facilitator of leadership for, say, Microsoft and some of these huge companies, and you talked about the soulful leadership, would they look at you like, okay, this stuff is crazy. What are you talking about, Stephen?
Oh my God. And first I got to take you back. Like at one point I was working with, and this company, I think has since changed its name, but I was on their board and worked with them for 5 years. It's called Enlightened Leadership. And so I would walk into a team like that at Microsoft, or even if it was me doing it myself in my own business, I would get a lot of flack. Like, oh, here comes the enlightened leader, you know, and this is 15 years ago, in some cases 20 years ago, and we have come a long way since then, by the way. People are more open and more accepting, but no, I laughed with them. You know, I had fun with it. I would kind of start off the session joking about it, and you know, some of you thought that I could levitate, but I can't. I'm super grounded, and you know, and I would have fun with it and play with it, but you know, it was kind of it was appropriate at the same time because we knew we had to progress. We knew we had to come together, but when you look at the definition of it, it's more like, what was the quote? It was like, you can't solve an existing problem with the same thinking that you had when you created it. I think it was an Einstein quote.
Yeah.
So illumined leadership is really just saying, we got to think bigger. We got to think better. We got to put more heart into this and get above the problem when we created it, because we're never going to fix it from the same level of thinking as when we created it. And that's true on the planet today. We're not going to get through this stuff with existing thoughts that we and how we got into it. That's where consciousness and leadership is everything.
Oh yeah. If you had access to some of the political leaders right now, what advice would you give them?
I wouldn't give them any advice. What I would do is I'd sit with them and I'd get into a conversation about them.
See, I love your approach already. It's so different.
Maybe. I mean, I just feel like I would sit down and I would want like 4 hours, and I would want to lock on the door, maybe a pitcher of water. And, you know, I would want to just like gentle into it and ask a bunch of open-ended questions and find out who they really are underneath that ego identity. And I don't know, some people just wouldn't do it, I'm sure, but I don't know. I think I've never met anyone, maybe I can't say that categorically, almost never met anyone that doesn't want to be heard.
True.
It doesn't want, everyone wants to be listened to. And it's so rare, Jodi. We don't listen to each other. Number one attribute of leadership these days, listening.
Yep.
I would listen and I would reflect back.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd have them see themselves through the conversation, so I wouldn't have to give them advice on anything.
Mm-hmm.
Eventually they'd go, I'd say, what I just heard you say is that true? Is that accurate for you? They go, shit, yeah, it is. What do you think about that? Is that how you really want to be perceived? And, you know, sometimes it can be really transformational for people. Because the second a person gets in a room with someone and starts saying, here's what you should do, resistance
Defense.
that ego gets engaged immediately.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, and I think it's so beautiful because when you allow somebody to speak about who they are and you're just actively listening, they're being seen. They feel like they're being seen. And then you create a mirror. So they're being reflected. Like you said, they're being reflected back to themselves. And they can really, truly see like, okay, this is how I'm, if they're truly aware. and they could become aware within that conversation as you're actively listening and you're actively allowing them to be seen. So if they can become aware in that conversation, they can say, wow, this is how I'm being perceived. And this is how I can make some adjustments. So I think that's a beautiful way to approach it.
Yeah, and the key to it is, because see, to be completely transparent, if I'm plugged in myself on if I walked in and I'm upset with this person before I met them, or I don't like them already, or I have my prejudices about them. This is why Black Lives Matter is so important. Like, I get to unwind my prejudgments, prejudices. So if that's in the room, I can't be effective at that conversation. So that's why earlier I was talking about, coming from a place of clarity, coming from a place of, I'm going to be objective, I'm going to be neutral, I'm going to get curious, which is your whole thing. Like, you're so good at it, Jodi. You inquire, you're curious, and that's why your show works.
Thank you. I appreciate that. So have you ever been in a situation, and I say this because I have, because I'd love to know how you've dealt with this. I've been in a situation where I tend to act as a mirror for people. And when people are struggling with the fact that they don't like themselves, and I reflect that back to them, they have a lot of resistance to me. So if I come in and I'm nice, I'm approachable in general, but then they have an issue with me. They're the one person that might have an issue with me. I'm thinking, what the heck? I'm just being nice to them. Why are they having such resistance? And so there's this loop. There tends to be this loop where they're seeing something that they have an issue with in them. And I'm the mirror reflecting back that one aspect that they have some type of trauma or wounding with. And I'm reflecting that back to them. And it's this weird dynamic. And so I've had to somehow almost like cloak that sometimes when I go into a room. I have to cloak that mirror into, because I had this one woman I was working with, a spiritual counselor, and she said, sometimes you're such a bright mirror that you almost have to shapeshift that into something a little bit different. So it's, because like if somebody's looking at the sun and it's so bright, it's reflecting in their eyes, they're going to be like, so like what advice, what would you say to that?
Well, don't use a floodlight when all you need is a pin light.
Right? There you go.
So, and I don't know for you, I mean, you and I are different human beings. It'd be a fun conversation, which I know we're going to have more of, but
yeah.
I think the thing that I want to do in that is I want to bring in compassion.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Because if I'm really compassionate, like I went through a phase in my life where I was just the leadership coach and I wanted to come in, and I'm not saying this is you, so be clear, I'm just talking about me. But I would come in and I wanted to be bright because I wanted to be the sun. And then I burned them. And then of course what I got back was sunburn. Of course what I got back was sunburn. But when I really could see the person with high degree of love and compassion, then I was there to serve them from the place that they could hear me. So we meet someone where they are, and oftentimes, not always in my experience, but oftentimes there will be just, I had it yesterday with a client, like, and I would just say, I know I'm jumping around a little bit. She was just on the low ladder of consciousness when she called me. And I knew I had to go down 4 or 5 rungs to talk to her, not because she was less than, but just because of where I could hear she was, like completely depressed and despondent. So if I was responding from a place of inspiration and high excitement, and you need to get your shit together and knock this depression off in some way, I know what would have happened.
Right.
It would have she would have fallen off the ladder.
Right.
So there's the compassion for self and gentleness with self, such that that's projected into the conversation with another. And most of us that have done a lot of work, we know when we do it. So I love this question because lots of people have done the work, have had that issue before.
Yeah, that's brilliant. I love the way that you handled that. The way that I handled it after I meditated about it, because it was really bothering me. Because I just was like, I don't know how to connect with her. And finally, and this might sound so odd, but finally, Spirit told me telepathically, give her these gold rocks. And I was like, what? Okay. So my spirit body gave her, every time I saw her, I would give her this gift of these gold rocks. And I'm like, I don't know what she's going to do with them. I don't know how she's going to receive them. But for some reason, every time I saw her, I was just like, okay. And I don't know, but something shifted. And within a matter of like a couple months, we were able to have a working relationship together. And it was like, oh my gosh, I just felt so much gratitude. And so I feel like when we go within and we ask and kind of meditate and pray on it, like, how can we connect with this person? So that helped. And then the other thing is kind of to your point with your client that you've dealt with, my daughter was going through a lot of depression and anxiety. And my first approach was, okay, sweetie, well, okay, so here's what you need to do, and I was like coming at it with like, just, be happy and this and positive thinking and da-da. And she just looked at me like, you need to jump off a cliff right now. Like, get out of my face, because I wasn't going into her world and being compassionate and being in that depression with her, seeing where she was, being where she was. And when I later took myself to a place of being in her shoes and seeing like, wow, I can't believe I even approached it initially the way I did. She wasn't even able to think that I could see her where she was. How disconnected was I as a mother, So, I felt so bad. But then I went back to her and said, I am so sorry. How can I help? How can I be there with you?
Oh, great, Jodi. That's a lot of awareness. And, your daughter's teaching you just like you're teaching her. And my client's teaching me just like I'm teaching her. And that's why I say this, this hierarchy, it's nutty. We got to drop it. Yeah. It doesn't work. Nobody's, everyone's got something to offer. Everyone has something to offer. The homeless person that I've talked to, or the homeless people I've talked to, have taught me lots to, like, even in my saying that, it sounds like some way like, like I was better than them because they're homeless. But no, like, the conversation had me humbled. Personal freedom from individuals that I've talked to, where I was just blown away. So we all contribute and we all have something to offer. Nobody's better than anybody else on this planet.
So true. In fact, I want to bring us to, because I know that the 7 people, well, all of you consisted of a group of 7, but the 6 men that you took to this amazing mountain on the border of Chile and Argentina. So Aconcagua, okay, 23,000 feet. Is that what it was? So you went on this journey. What did they teach you? And tell me a little bit about that journey.
Well, I learned a lot of humility on that journey from the men on the team that taught me a lot about leadership because they just reflected a lot of things back to me. And in part, that journey taught me more about collaborative leadership than because it was my project, it was my program, it was my film. I'm the one that was writing the book. And I kind of put myself in that position of, hey, I'm the leadership coach and you're the client. And so over the course of 9 months together, that all got flattened. And it was just like, we're all in this together. And one of the reasons I did it was I knew through the training, not just the mountain itself, we had some tough training climbs where we thought we were going to lose our life.
Wow.
During that 9 months, we saw 2 bodies on the mountain, on different mountains at different times, but taught me a lot about the precious nature and the impermanence of life. Because one guy we had all seen on Aconcagua, right around 20,000 feet, I looked at him in the eyes, and 20 minutes later he was dead because he tripped and fell 1,000 feet. And so I learned a lot about humility. I learned about impermanence. I learned how precious every breath is. But the other thing I don't think I've talked a lot about, I think it's in my book, in part in the 3rd phase of the book, but it was about, to me, Aconcagua was a feminine mountain.
Oh.
And I learned how to bow to her because I saw how she was kicking people's ass. Like I saw where she was gentle and she would receive us as we climbed, almost like, yeah, come on in and I'm welcoming you. And the sun would be bright and it would be easy and graceful. And then I saw when the winds kicked up and there were ice shards in the wind cutting through tents at 22,000 feet, you're laying in your tent, and I didn't have this with my tent, but people do, and people did. The ice, it's like knives, razor blades going through your tent and your sleeping bag and cutting you while you're so I saw that fury. So I bowed to her, and I found almost like I had a mantra as I was climbing, like, thank you for allowing me access to your beauty and your grace. It changed a lot for me in relationship with the feminine and how to approach it. Because, what are some of the quotes, Jodi? You got to help me, but no wrath like a woman scorned, or
I know which one you're talking about.
It's my experience is, that's right. Us guys, we pale in comparison to that, but
how beautiful.
I learned that. Yeah,
so it's almost like you balanced your masculine and feminine through realizing her feminine energy, the Aconcagua.
Yeah, and how it supported my masculine energy. Climbing a big mountain is not easy, and so it required ambition, which is a masculine trait.
Right.
But it also required support and being received, which are feminine polarity traits.
Yeah.
So, but the blend of that, and again, I know we're waxing on about a lot of different things, but that's what the planet needs. We're so out of balance. Like, have you heard we're the black-winged bird with one wing flapping and we're just going in circles because we don't have the balance.
Yes, I love that you brought this up because it reminds me of a trip to Sedona that I had a couple years ago. And I was meditating on this rock and I asked the rock to tell me a story. And this entire vision opened up to me. And basically I saw these god and goddesses in step with each other. And then I saw this cataclysmic something or other happen, and they were split apart. And basically that was symbolic to me of the polarities of the masculine and feminine being split apart and at war with each other as far as the energies. And that was part of my mission, is to try to help the energies come and be cohesive again. and to realize the strengths of one another. And also, secondly, to have that become in balance with myself. And so that is so true about
Well
what you're
said, Jodi. Yeah.
and to your point though, that our world is so in need of having those polarities become united again, so that we can be in awe of each other's beauty and magnificence and power, and to also utilize those energies. And so,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, and if I may, I hope I hope I don't like get hate mail for what I'm about to say, but I'm willing to say this because I think it's so important. Like, so for the women leaders out there, what I hope for, here's my hope. I hope that more women rise up as leaders and help the balance of this. And what I would say though is that what we've seen in large part, not always, but women leaders that have risen from the masculine as opposed to the feminine. And we
Yes.
don't need more masculine. So and listen, I can't understand. This is where I beg for forgiveness as a man, because I can't understand what it's like for a woman to be in a corporate boardroom, as an example. Just like I can't understand what it's like to be a Black person unless I really inquire and discover and spend the time.
Mm-hmm.
I have spent some time, but I'm sure I still don't understand it. But the point is, we don't need more women being men. We need more women being women. And again, I believe there are a lot of men that wouldn't bow to that, but there's a lot of men that would bow to that. Like, thank God that this woman is standing up here speaking to us from that beautiful, balanced, feminine polarity that this planet needs to heal.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I 100% agree with you. I just wish if we could like have this list of like, oh, I'm the corporation that actually loves something like that, loves a woman like that, that we could actually list that and enumerate that. I think women from all over the world would be flocking to those companies. But I think a lot of women put their arms up and just go, where are those companies? Where are those men?
Well, and again, I mean, I think we're just getting access to it. But leadership is leadership. So leaders will rise.
Yeah.
So and for men too, be the leader that you are. Gandhi taught us that. Be the change that you want to see in the world. So again, through collaborative support and leadership, there will be people that will emerge, not as better than, but with as a clear service orientation or service consciousness to help make things better. And these people know, it's like it's in their spiritual curriculum as a soul.
Yes.
Like, my spiritual curriculum is really clear, which is to serve and to support leaders in finding that.
Yeah.
I'm a behind the scenes kind of person in a way. And I love that. And I'm clear that that's who I am. But there are people out there listening to your show right now that go, well, not me. I'm meant to be out front. I'm meant to be leading. I'm meant to be starting this nonprofit. I'm meant to be in politics. And they know, and it's scary because so many leaders get crucified, but it's time for us to rise in that way, I feel.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Said. Well said. And to your point, and just to back up what I was going to say, instead of having that masculine energy of seeking and where are those companies and where are those men, as we back into our feminine energy and say, just be who we are and be in balance with our masculine and feminine, like you said, they will emerge and we will attract those types of people and companies.
Beautiful.
and
Love that.
all types of things. For me, I shared when I actually spoke at a book launch in Glastonbury at the tour virtually yesterday for Colm Holland and The Secret of the Alchemist. I talked about how on June 13th, 2020, I got an email from his publicist and it just seemed to like drop out of the heavens. I was like, where is this even coming from? This is amazing, And when you're living a life of just transformation and alchemy and you're doing the work, things just seem to fall off fall into place, you know? I mean, books fall off the shelf, people come into your life. I was talking to Stephen before the show, and he asked me, well, how did you come into contact with me? And I said, I accidentally saw some of your videos on Facebook. Nothing happens by accident in my belief. And I know that it was for a reason that I saw Stephen's videos, and his teachings and beliefs are so in alignment with guided with my show's concepts. And I just knew that I needed to have him on the show. I wanted to have him on the show. So that's how life works when you are in alignment with your divinity and with your purpose and mission. And so, yes, 3 cheers to yes.
I love it. 3 cheers to yes.
So, you know, if you had to do that climb again, anything that you do different, or if you were to put that mission together again, what would change?
This is going to sound so predictable, what I'm going to say, in a way.
Nothing, right? Because everything happens for a reason.
I really believe that. I mean, when I look back on it, were there things that occurred that I didn't necessarily enjoy during the time? Yeah, there were things that I didn't enjoy, you know, like the cameraman that I hired to do the documentary. He didn't, in my opinion, he didn't get in shape for the climb. And when it came time to go down to Argentina and climb the mountain, I had to fire him before the climb because I didn't want him to be in jeopardy filming a documentary on the mountain. So now I had a problem called the summit scenes are kind of important. What happened on the mountain was kind of important. So I learned to use a GoPro very quickly, and I took it on the mountain and on the summit. And honestly, again, talk about perfection. It made the film more real and more raw. I mean, I hooked it on the back of my pack going up to the summit, and we found this spine-chilling music, and you can see some of the climbers moving up to the top, and it's just better. But I didn't like firing him. He's a great guy. I just didn't want his health. I didn't want him to be in jeopardy, and he just wasn't ready. But nothing. I wouldn't change anything.
Yeah.
And by the way, I mean, I'm happy to give you the link and the promo code to the movie.
Oh, that'd be
so
beautiful.
your people can watch it. It's on Vimeo right now, and there would be no cost if your viewers and your people want to watch it.
What a gift. Thank you so much. That would be lovely. Thank you very much. What are you doing right now? What other projects? I know you have L4. Tell us a little bit about that.
Oh, you know everything. That's it. I mean, that is my latest thing that came up for me to do during COVID. I was sitting here in my home in Montecito, and a lot of the speaking things or the culture change or the one-on-one face-to-face, it all fell in a way, and I've adapted like all of us have. But I was like, life, leadership, and longevity. And then I meditated, I prayed on it, and it was like light.
Yes.
Leadership, life, and longevity. So L4 is an 8-week course, 1 hour a week. And I usually have 20 to 25 to 30 people in it. It's a quick hit, very deep conversation for people to start to look at how do we round the bend from what we used to know to what we're heading into as uncertainty. And we discuss things like continuity and endurance and things that are also for well-being. I had a doctor on the other night that taught us about how the quickest ways to build immunity so that if a person, and we have a few people in our cohort that had COVID, and we have them talk about what they went through. But overall, like in 72 hours, people, you can build set your immunity up better by nutrition. And we talk about those things too. So breath work. I have a cold plunge in my back. I was in it this morning at like 40 degrees for a number of minutes. Because thermogenesis is really beautiful for immunity building and cellular regeneration, which we call autophagy. So we get into all that stuff, which is for staying young and staying vital and staying well. It's important for leaders.
So the cold showers I was taking in Africa, they were actually good for me.
Absolutely. As uncomfortable as they might have been,
Yeah,
Jodi. Yeah.
that's incredible. Now, you were actually, I was listening to some of the podcasts that you were on with other people. Fantastic. You were talking about the little baby steps. It reminds me about that movie, What About Bob? Baby steps. So
Yeah.
that are important, because when leaders get to a certain point, they've done extraordinary things. They kind of get to the point where, okay, now what? You know, I've come to this certain point in my life. What's more? There's always more. However, those little fine, um, just tweaks are going to make a difference. Talk a little bit about that.
I think especially now, like, it used to be we planned out 5 years with a 1 year unifying goal. And who's doing that these days? Nobody I know.
Yeah.
So, what could I do today as a leader? And I just say very clearly with people, small things done consistently
Mm-hmm.
create major impact. So, especially if a person's feeling stuck, like they think they got to write a book during COVID, or they got to, do some big thing. You don't have to do some big thing. Just get up and put your body in motion, shift the behavior toward what you want. And if that's all you did twice in a day, meaning I went for a walk outside and I got sun on my face because I've been depressed and I've been watching Netflix for a week, do the thing that's little that moves you in the direction and feel it, and then do the next thing, because the small things add up. And if I just do my day, and I have days where I feel that way, I'm not exempt. Not a human being I know is exempt. I'm pretty good with technology and how to work all this, but I have my days. And on those days, I do little things. And I do another little thing. Then I do another little thing. And then I take a break. And then I do another little thing. And before you know it, my days have been a really good day, or a pretty good day, where it might have been a really crappy day. So little things add up. Just do the next thing.
Yeah, I have, there's a scripture that has kind of been a mantra for my life, and it's through small and simple things, great things shall come to pass. And I love that. I love it. And also it's an article I read not too long ago, and I think it was from a Navy SEAL. And he said, making your bed every day is something simple that will actually set your day off in the right direction. And I was like, really? But it's true. There's something about it, like the organization of it, the consistency of it. And it's those baby steps that I really think can make a difference.
Yeah.
Also, you've talked about that trapeze symbolism, like the parable of the trapeze artist. If you could talk about that to the audience for Guided, I love it.
Well, I think it's especially important right now because many of us are hanging on to a past that it's it's over.
Yeah.
So the trapeze metaphor is, you're standing at 100 feet up, you grab onto the bar, it's fearful, scary a little bit to jump off, but you got to, because otherwise you're just going to stand there, and you jump out and you swing out, and then there's always a gap from one bar to the next.
And that's where people, I feel like, get stuck at the gap, because they either want to go back and they don't want to jump forward.
Exactly. And a lot of people right now are hanging on.
Mm-hmm.
So when people are hanging on, they lose momentum, because life is about movement.
Mm-hmm.
And we lose momentum. And then the worst part, though, is then we swing back, and now we're really just hanging on.
Yeah.
Because now we're just hanging on in the middle of nowhere. So to let go can be exhilarating, or it can be really scary.
Yeah.
But letting go of the past, letting go of old thoughts, letting go of old behaviors, letting go of old relationships, letting go of all these things support us in moving forward. And we all have it. This is the thing I really want to bring into our conversation, the universality of being human. We tend to think, I'm the only one struggling, I'm the only one suffering, I'm the only one that thinks this way. No, many of us are struggling. Many of us are sad. Many of us want to move forward. And it's an open-hearted conversation that supports it.
So true.
So let go of the idea that you're somehow supposed to be perfect and have it all together, even if you're an adult that runs a company. No, let go of that idea and, you know, move into the future of uncertainty with excitement.
Yeah. I think so often when you hear those very sad stories about maybe these accomplished artists or these CEOs who commit suicide, oftentimes you're shocked. You're like, wait, what? I thought they had it all together. Their Instagram posts were perfect. People don't realize the struggles that folks have. And really, sometimes you just never know. You just never know. And so I think that is why, really, like you said, universally, we're all human. We all get our pants on the same way, our shirts on the same way. There are struggles in just being human and going through sadness and loss and mourning and all of that. I remember getting a question from somebody and she's like, you have challenges, you struggle? Like, wait, what? No, I was born on this earth just like you. I was born into this experience, this human experience. Everybody has struggles. And it just depends on how we approach life and what we do with those struggles, because those struggles actually can be our points, the portals of power and the breakthroughs that we have to the next ahas, the beauty of the divinity within us, and being aware of that. And so I love that. And I love what you just shared about the trapeze, you know, the parable of the trapeze, or the metaphor of the trapeze, because I think sometimes the programming is so instilled in us, as far as from our parents or grandparents, because at least in my family, it's like, oh no, don't quit your job until you have another one secured, you know? And sometimes you have to take that leave because it's making you sick. Like in my case, it was making me sick. My sister has a situation where it's making her sick. And I'm like, you have to jump. You have to take that leap and sprout wings on the way down, you know?
Well, I love that portals of power. And I think we want to remember how powerful we are in terms of kindness and compassion for others, because we don't know, even in social media, which we talked about earlier, when we fire back something mean-spirited, or we're, you know, yelling at someone in a parking lot, or we're doing whatever we sometimes do as human beings, that we don't know their world and we don't know the impact of it. And the suicide hotline is blowing up right now with calls and people struggling and not knowing what to do. And we're not hearing as much about that right now, but I happen to know someone said it was up 600%.
Oh my goodness.
So, you know, it's like, this is a time to come together. It's a time to be loving. It's a time to be kind. It's a time to listen.
Yeah.
To other.
Yeah. I think conversations like this, Stephen, are so important. And I'm so glad to have you on Guided and sharing your wisdom and what you've gained and what you know through your experiences. So I really appreciate you being on Guided. Real quick before I let you go, I want you to share kind of your journey of how you got here, because I know just in my research, you came from simple means, you grew up with a single mother, and so you kind of had to shift your paradigms in order to gain the wisdom that you gained.
Thank you for doing the research. Number one, I appreciate it, because I think it's made our conversation so wonderful and collaborative. And I think it's a demonstration of this male-female polarity and the power of it. So thank you, Jodi, for doing your part.
Pleasure. Yeah.
Yeah, meager beginnings, all perfect. And, you know, I became self-referential pretty quickly in my life, meaning if I wanted to go to college or anything or play sports, just because of the situation I grew up in, I needed to find a way to do that. And I always did, you know, whether it was flipping hamburgers at Dairy Queen or flipping papers on the front porch or busboy or parking cars or working on an oil rig, I did all that. And it taught me a lot about work ethic. It taught me a lot about getting up at 4 a.m. to shovel snow. It taught me things that I wouldn't trade for anything. I somehow, graduated from Fort Lewis College, which I always joke about this, but I have respect for the college. But I say you could put fog on a mirror and get into Fort Lewis, because they didn't have, it wasn't like Stanford. It wasn't like any of the big schools that we hear about how hard it is. It wasn't competitive at the time to get in. You could literally get in with just about any, if you graduated from high school, you could probably get in at the time. But I learned a lot there, interestingly, because Fort Lewis was so beautiful in Durango, Colorado. I had professors that had left Harvard just to come and live in Durango, and they wanted to teach. So my freshman year, I had a philosophy professor, Dr. Pixler, who had taught at Harvard for like 20 years. So I had a great education regardless of the easiness to get into school. And somehow I got into the financial services world. I did really well in it. I was on the succession plan for executive leadership of a large banking financial services firm. And I'm trying to like circumvent all this and compress it, but I loved leadership. I loved to see the difference between someone in the front of the room that brought the best out in people and those that didn't. So I became a student. I applied it in my own teams, in my own businesses, and then I left the corporate world and began doing this work.
What was that moment when you said, or maybe there wasn't just one moment, maybe it was like a lead up to it, where you just said, this is not for me. I need to go on either a detour, or there's just a different trajectory for me?
Well, I knew in my heart, like we all know when we're in a job that doesn't line up with our soul. We all know when we're in a relationship that doesn't line up with our soul. We all know if we're in a house that, you know, doesn't line up with our soul. We all know. And then sometimes we have to deal with it, navigate it, make life changes. Sometimes it can take time. So it took me time, but how did I know? I got sick and I was lying in intensive care for 8 days. And that's a longer story, maybe another interview, but I heard a man next to me take his last breath from a burn in a motorcycle accident.
Oh my goodness.
In intensive care, there's curtains. There's not a room. And it was like 3 a.m. and I could hear him struggling, and the nurses were on staff, but I heard him literally like struggling for breath. And then I heard what I thought was his last breath. And then you hear the code and the people came. And in that moment, I made a decision that in my life, I was not going to do obligation, but I was going to do commitment. And so there's a big difference. I want all of our listeners to consider the difference between being obligated to something and being committed to something. They're two very distinct energetics.
Oh yeah.
Obligation, like I should do this, I'm meant to do this, I was told to do this. I hear that a lot in my work, like I have to do this. And, but anyway, that was the moment.
I think that is so important for people to really feel as well, because a couple things come to mind. If we don't make the commitment to ourselves and to our soul and mission, our soul mission, our bodies will actually kind of work as helpers to get us out or pull us out, to extract us, to eject us out of the situation. And it manifests as deathly illness or a terminal illness or just really getting chronic illness. I had a situation like that as well. And I just couldn't figure out why am I continuously getting sick? And I mean, I knew, but I kept pushing myself nevertheless, because I didn't want it to be what it was. I wanted to just keep going. But in my heart, the same as you, I knew that I was supposed to do something else. And it happened to be a year and a half ago in Oregon. I was working for an NBC affiliate. A lot of people don't know the story, so this is new. You've heard it on Guided. I haven't shared this a whole lot. So I was working at the NBC affiliate in Oregon, and I was the main anchor there. And I had taken a break for a while to raise my daughter, and she had finally gone off to college. And so I was like, okay, here's my time to get back in full time, because I had just been doing it part time. and freelance work as I was doing other things, but now is my time to get back in full time. But I kept getting these kind of promptings and impressions that it just wasn't the right fit. And I knew on many different levels it wasn't. And then I got sick. I got really, really sick. And I come to find out I ended up getting a brain tumor. And then from there, Spirit told me, if you don't leave, you're going to die. And I was like, okay, if that's not clear enough. So not only that, we know what's going on in Oregon now. It's like it's a war zone in Portland and Eugene, and a lot of things are just going down. So I was distinctly told that I needed to get out of there. As soon as I left, things started just getting so much better with my health. And you just know that if you listen to your heart and soul, you will be good to go. But it's hard. I don't know why it's so hard for us to do that, but it's like there's that resistance. And so I literally had to pray, like, please help me listen to this, because I'm scared that there's not going to be something catching me at the other end. There's not going to be this nice little wrapped up cutesy little, with a bow on top job waiting for me there with, a good, salary with benefits. No, I had to take the leap.
Yeah, I really love that story, and thank you for sharing it. I mean, we all have our identity, and our identity is sometimes wrapped up in, like, my job at the bank and your job as an anchor person, even though it was, hurting you in a way. And so I think on the other side of it is, once we've been through these experiences a few times, then we can have what I call attunement.
Yes.
And attunement is, it's a niggle now. So it's just, oh, I'm noticing that this isn't lining up, or I'm noticing that this doesn't feel like flow, or whatever the language, grace, whatever the language would be, and pay attention to that and not just stuff it and disregard it. Because what made me sick was stuffing all the messages.
Yes.
I was unwilling to listen. And in those days, I wasn't an alcoholic, not an alcoholic, but I was definitely drinking every night. And 4 or 5 beers a night's a lot of beer for me. And I was stuffing my feelings through alcohol. So self-medication, if you will.
Yeah.
Which doesn't help. But anyway, yeah. I appreciate your story so much, Jodi. Thank you.
Oh, and likewise, Stephen, this has been such a beautiful time with you. Thank you so much for spending your afternoon with me.
It's been great, Jodi. I've loved every minute. It's flown by, and I hope that there's value out there for all of your listeners, and that it goes out into the world and serves lots of people.
Yes, likewise. I know it will. This has been just a beautiful collaboration of light. I really appreciate it. And how can we find you? I know you have a website, and I know you are on social media. So if people want to also get into that L4, they can go on that website. And can you repeat that for us?
Yeah, it's McGheeLeadership.com. So Mcghee is MCGHEE,
okay.
leadership.com. I will send you the link to the movie and the code, so people don't have to pay. They just put the code in. It's caps, all caps, Leader VIP on Vimeo. Vimeo. I'll get confused between Venmo and Vimeo now, but and then, the L4 is on my website. And from there, I think you can find me just about everywhere.
Perfect. Love it. Thank you so much for gifting us with that as well. And I will have everything in the description, everyone. So thank you so much, Stephen, again, for being with us on Guided. And everyone, if you can, hit the subscribe button, and also make sure to hit the bell on the top right, because when it indicates all and you hit that, then you'll make sure to get all of these wonderful interviews that will help you navigate your divine journey. All right. So everyone, have a beautiful rest of your day, and I will talk to you soon. Thanks, Stephen.
Thank you, Jodi. Appreciate you.
Bye-bye.